exciting presenter joining us today, Mitch Lowe, who is the CEO of MoviePass. And amongst that, he has a very extensive and impressive resume of leading some other really well-known entertainment companies. And so today he's going to be talking to us about the impact of leadership on innovation. So without further ado, I will pass it over to Mitch.
Thank you. Thanks for the introduction. Yeah, I'm thrilled to share with you some of my thoughts on leadership, and in particular, it's really more the impact of leadership on innovation. Maybe before I get started, I can share with you, some thoughts on kind of the difference between innovation and disruption. And oftentimes I've been in the past labeled as a disruptor. Really what disruption is, the difference between that and innovation is when an individual or a company or a new company comes up with a better way to do something that has been done in the past. Disruption is when you continue to do things in a way that is less efficient, slower, or at lower quality, while someone else is out innovating you. And so, in our lives, I mean, you can look around, it's almost everything you do could be done better and faster and at a higher quality. And companies like Netflix, which I was one of the co-founding senior executives of, what we were really trying to do is create a better way to consume lots of entertainment. And at Redbox, it was really all about how to get DVDs easier and more convenient at a lower price. I think almost every kind of new company that started over the last 10, 12 years has been all about that kind of innovation, solving problems, solving things that didn't work right for you. And big companies and small companies continue to figure out new and better ways to accomplish that kind of innovation and therefore not get disrupted. Now, leaders play a huge role in this by establishing the right environment, the right mix of employees, the right kind of culture that incentivizes and creates more innovation. I'll give you a few examples. Back in the early 2000s at Netflix, we rented movies and sold DVDs and mailed DVDs to people's homes. And we also had huge checks being written to us to advertise for other companies, especially studios. But the leadership knew that by focusing on the one or two things you can do better than anyone else, we had a better chance of fighting against, at that time, Blockbuster and HBO, and then ultimately Amazon. And the leadership had to make some tough decisions. One of them, for example, at one point we had almost $25 million worth of checks being written from Warner Brothers to advertise for them. And one time, the delay in the approval of their artwork caused us to miss delivering movies to people's homes. The leader, Reed Hastings, who's still the CEO, tore up all the checks, closed down the advertising department, and said, listen, we've got to focus on getting movies to people fast. So sometimes leaders have to take those kind of drastic, tough decisions. But how do they create the environment where you don't get people rebelling or thinking, boy, that was a bad decision? It really starts by everybody in the company understanding the product or service just like a customer. At Netflix, we always had to pay for the service ourselves as employees. We didn't get a special deal. We didn't get a special hotline, because in order to really understand what kind of innovation would help consumers, you as an employee need to use the product and service yourself and not get special treatment. It was because of that that people understood creating the ability to have multiple people on your account actually counterintuitively resulted in higher loyalty and less churn and cancellation. And you can imagine if you had, for example, your college student or your high school students on your account, if you ever thought about canceling Netflix, you would hear from your kids in about 5 minutes. And that usually was a minute or two after their friends who they had shared your password with called them. That all came from employees using the product. The idea that you could immediately go to the next episode, that all came from employees using the product just like a customer. So the first thing as a leader you want to do is create the environment where your team and your employees are using the product just like your customers, paying for it, not getting special treatment. The second thing you need to do is to make sure that your employee pool is one that really represents your customer base. And diversity, whether it's gender or ethnicity or cultural background, I can't emphasize how important that is, because ultimately, if you are all thinking the same, you get into this group think, this echo chamber where new ideas and new ways to do things don't come out. So the second thing is to create this very diverse group of employees and team members, and that's from the very top all the way through the organization, your board members, your leadership team, and it's not easy to do. All of us try or feel more comfortable working with people that are like us, who think like us, maybe went to the same schools, and you have to try to avoid that, and because you'll get trapped into missing some of the big innovation. The third is, as a leader, what you need to do is establish the environment for data and analytics, and especially trying to understand what are the actionable pieces of data. And we all know, in today's world, we're inundated with information and survey results and analytics. If you understand your product and your service, and you make sure your team understands it, and now I admit, sometimes some products and services are a little bit difficult to get your team to use like a customer. But there are ways to encourage that. But if you understand and your team understands the product or service, and they represent a diverse selection of your customers, they will know of all the data that you have in front of you, which is the actionable data. And I've become a big fan of a kind of a scientific approach for allocating your resources. And it starts with the Net Promoter Score survey, which you've probably taken on a scale of 0 to 10. How likely would you recommend our product or service to a friend? But the key to that, because that's almost looking backwards, the key to that is asking the second question: what's the number one thing we can do to improve our product or service? And then take the people who ranked you either a 7 or an 8 as far as satisfaction, and focus your resources and the things you fix on that group. What does that group want you to improve? Don't waste your time on the people who rank you 0 through 6, and just keep doing the things that the people who rank you 9 and 10 want. But the key is coming up with a kind of a format for understanding which innovation you need to focus your resources on. And that's mostly because if you're lucky, you will have so many things you could do, so many ideas you could make the product better. And you need to have a more kind of analytical approach to understanding which of those to focus your energy on. The last thing is to, as a leader, create an environment that measures in a quantifiable way and rewards your team and your employees. Every year, identify the one or two things your company or your team has to accomplish in the next 12 months, and quantify that. Put it in a objective measurement with goals, and identify how to reward your team if they exceed or meet those goals. No one likes to be in an environment where their performance is subjective. And if you create a objective, a quantifiable, measurable system for rewarding your team, and you create this diverse environment, and you get your team to use the product just like customers, you will come up with innovation after innovation after innovation. And it's not easy. It's a lot easier when things are going well, but it's something you need to start at the very beginning of your idea. Now, you may ask, I'm not a leader, I'm an employee, or I'm an intern. If you take these ideas and work with the team to help transmit these ideas to the rest of your team, you can play an integral part in getting your team to be more successful, and it will enhance your position in that organization. The most important thing you can do when you're in an organization is prove that you are valuable, because everybody wants more and more people who are contributing to the overall success of either the team or the organization. So I'll leave it there. I'm happy to take any questions either now or later. I'll turn it back to you.
Thank you, Mitch, so much. That was really great, and some very clear, actionable steps for some of our interns to be able to utilize as they progress through their careers and get into leadership roles. So that was really great advice. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, so if anybody has any questions, again, please submit them to the Q&A, and we'll answer them to the best of our abilities. While we wait for some students to hopefully enter in some questions, I actually have one for you. Mm-hmm. So in your experience working with all these different companies in a leadership role, have you ever experienced a time where there was a lot of resistance to change and innovation, and how did you have to deal with that?
Yeah, well, there is always resistance to change. Typically, the resistance I would get would either be from the HR department or from the finance department. It's too risky, it's going to take too long to get a payback. And it really is true. Even the smallest innovation can take 3 years for a payoff, with the investment and the ramp up time. There are exceptions, but generally that's the case. And it's always the budget that gets cut short is the innovation budget. So one of the things that I've always tried to do to make sure that resistance is minimal is, one, keep an upward to the right kind of success rate in the company. As a leader, as long as things are going well, more people, whether it's your board or your finance team, are willing to take the risk that, hey, they've been right 80% of the time, so I'll trust that this will work. So the most important thing is to have regular, steady success. The second thing is to include as many people as possible at the very early stage, why is it important to innovate? What is this particular innovation going to cost? What's going to be the benefit? And to use analytics to make some estimates on what the positive impact of this will be, whether it's more customers or higher profits or less cost. So it's really important to get people involved, especially those who will resist the change early on. I think with people, it's a harder thing. At Redbox, when we got to about $800 million a year in revenue, I had to change out all my VPs, the 6 VPs that had essentially gotten us from zero to $700-800 million. And there was I wanted them to stay, but I wanted to bring in new leaders who had more experience with bigger teams. And that was important because in that year, we grew to $1.5 billion in revenue. We doubled our revenue. And that was the hardest change. Only one of those VPs stayed. The rest were so upset and felt that it was lack of loyalty. So it's a real hard thing as your company starts to grow. Where does your loyalty lie? Is it with the company? Is it with the employees? The shareholders? Every leader has to answer that question. Is it the customers, the shareholders, or your employees? And it's not as easy as it sounds once you're in the middle of it.
Yeah, I can imagine it's a really fine line to balance. But yeah, thank you for that response. We have a couple of questions that just came in. So the first one is a really good question. He said, "Hi Mitch, great presentation. I really liked the point about diversity and getting a diverse team for new and different ideas. How can a company make itself more attractive to diverse potential employees who might not otherwise be thinking of applying there?"
I think it's a hard thing to do. You have to make sure that all your materials, the things you say about the company, and what you really do, once people are at work, whether it's remotely or in an office, is conducive to all different cultures. And when you hire people, every person you hire, you have to make it clear what the kind of mission and culture of the company you're building should be, or what you want it to be. A organizational psychologist gave me some great advice when our company was growing really fast, and he said, you always, as a leader, you take for granted that people know what the culture should be, or they know what your kind of guiding principles are, but they don't. They're just guessing. So it's important whether you're an employee, an intern, or a leader, is just to take one slide and write out the 5 things, 6 things that are the most important for you in the company, and share those with other people. Share those with people you hire so that they know, what you're looking for is a diverse group of people to come up with solutions. And you want to create the environment that is conducive to that. So sharing your principles about business shouldn't just be something that you think they know. You should actually be explicit and write them out and share them, with candidates and new people you hire, and do it on a regular basis with the team. And everybody else should share their own thoughts. It's a great way to create that type of environment.
Yeah, absolutely. That's great advice. And we have another question asking about whether or not you can still have influence at the company that you work at, even if you are at a lower level. Obviously we're working with a lot of interns who are still in college, just starting out their career. So at that point, can you have some influence on the company?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. It's actually, influence comes from having good ideas backed up with good logic. And so the best thing, I mean, the basic things you always want to do, you want to, you always want to do what you've said you're going to do. And if you can't deliver, you should tell whoever you're reporting to that, hey, I'm going to be late delivering it. That way you build this confidence that people understand, that you've got the integrity within you to deliver what you said you're going to do, and not surprise the people you work for. But to gain influence, so you need that foundation, those kind of basics of, being there when the job is, when you're supposed to be there, doing what you said you were going to do. And then if you've got that foundation, build upon it by coming up with good solid ideas for the company or the team to do better. And don't just shout them out, or don't just tell people about them. Study how you're going to present that idea and who you're going to present it to, and do some background research. To get influence, people, you have to give ideas with good logic behind it that make people go, wow, okay, I want to listen to this person the next time. And that influence is really all about kind of changing the course, or helping nudge the course of the company or the team in a way you believe is better. And it may be that you believe that the team should be more diverse. And so coming to the table with the logic of why that's good for the company, and why that makes the company stronger and healthier, as opposed to just saying, we should be more diverse. You want to have, data and logic behind those things. So it's hard, but and you have to be patient, but it's all about people wanting to listen to you because you've got good ideas that are backed with good logic and research. They can tell you actually have thought through those things. So that's super important. I've seen interns, I had an intern that in 2 years became the chief technology officer of a $1 billion company. And his name was Eric Horston. And it was all because he kept coming to the table with incredible ideas that no one else had thought about. And he explained them in a way that, people thought, wow, okay, that makes sense. He's now running a golf company, that sets up technology iPads on golf courses. And, you don't have to be held back by being an intern. If you have good ideas and good solutions, you become valuable.
Great, yeah. So I think we have time for maybe one or two more questions. We have one here asking about, is there anything that you and your Netflix team would have done differently earlier on?
Well, there's a million things we did wrong. If people go back, we started the company in '98, and we were mailing DVDs to people's homes, and essentially trying to be a video store, a mail order video store where you picked your movies on the internet. And the thing that we did not understand for almost 2 years, we also sold DVDs, and we sold them at cost. And that was the biggest part of our business. I think had we not kind of wasted that first year, trying to figure out how to source and deliver new DVDs to people's homes, whereas, they could buy them at Walmart a lot cheaper, and, even Amazon at that point started selling DVDs. I think that was, one big mistake that we made. There's a ton of mistakes that, we developed this algorithm for helping you find a movie that you would like. We had people do 0 to 5 stars, and we created this technology. We didn't create it. We used a technology called collaborative filtering, where if you rank 5 movies just like someone else, then we would assume you would love a movie that someone else in that group rated at 5 stars. And we created all these and somehow the algorithm, I remember one time, if you liked Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory, we thought you'd also love The Shining, with Jack Nicholson, a horror movie. So, we made lots of mistakes, not understanding the nuances of algorithms, and how kind of the errors that would result in. And there's
Yeah.
many, many more.
Yeah, but I'm sure you obviously learn over time.
Yeah.
So we have one more question, and I think it's a really good one. It might have you thinking a little bit, but so Grace asked, what are some of the things that you look out for in an idea that makes you consider it innovative and sustainable over time, considering that most innovations come with financial commitments?
Yeah, I usually will do a kind of a chart where I will list, all the different things we could do, because usually it's a matter of which is going to be the most impactful and least costly innovation. So I'll make a list, and in each column it will have the estimated cost, the estimated time, the estimated benefit, whether it's in dollars or some other benefit. And then I will do a formula that will multiply the amount of time by the dollars, and deduct from that the benefit. And I'll just, do a straight, value of time and money against it. And I'll then put a likelihood of success percentage, because many of them, sound really good on paper, but when you actually do it, I'll give you an example. At Redbox, when we were at that kind of $300 million a year revenue, we had most people were renting movies at the kiosk between 4 o'clock and 7 p.m. And there would be these long lines. And we'd see people leave the line because they were tired of waiting for someone else in front of them. And we thought, okay, what if we put right on the side a return slot so you could return your DVD while someone else is renting? We put a lot of money into it. We put out a bunch of test machines, and it turned out the people who were renting were going, "Hey, what are you doing standing next to me?" They thought, "Well, you're invading my personal space."
Mm-hmm.
So the idea seemed good and logical, but in practice, it didn't work. So I think it's a matter of doing that kind of analytical evaluation of the likelihood, the benefit, the cost, giving it, being conservative. And then I also, like I said, use this 2-part net promoter score where I ask my customers, if of the 5 things I could do, what's the most important? And then I take the people who, what's called passively satisfied, the people that rank you 7 and 8 out of a score of 0 through 10, what is the 1 or 2 things they want you to do? And I've always found that to be the kind of the biggest bang for the buck. So, it starts with you and your customers knowing or having an idea of what needs to be improved, and then focusing on those things. Like, for example, in that same survey, most of the customers who loved us just wanted more copies of the movies. The people who didn't like us wanted fewer DVDs to be scratched. And the people who were 7 and 8 wanted the transaction faster. And so we focused on that as opposed to more copies or trying to fix the disc. So I think it's it's not a perfect science, but it's coming up with that kind of evaluation.
Yeah, absolutely. A lot of trial and error and improvements for sure.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
well, those are all the questions that we have. Again, thank you
Okay.
so much for taking the time to share your expertise and experiences with us today.
My pleasure.
Um, Yeah, to all of our attendees, thank you for joining us today. We will be hosting another Global Employability Expert Series next Wednesday rather than in 2 weeks. And it will be about how to have a successful conclusion to your internship program. So stay tuned and keep a lookout in your inbox for some more details about that. But until then, thank you again, Mitch, and
Thank you.
thank you, everyone. Bye.
Bye.